So we have we're going to another match here, which we have just on the screen now. We have Chris Aprim versus Edgar Flores. Chris is on the left of your screen. Edgar is on the right. Chris is playing a Splinter Twin deck, just like we were talking about, with Shrine of Piercing Vision, Grim Lavamancer. Much more traditional version than Ezra's list that we just saw. Edgar, not surprisingly, playing Cobblade.
Things he went for this week, he's got some Blade Splicers and Mirror Crusaders. He split them 2 and 2. Sun Titan and Phantasmal Image. So he's got both ends of the spectrum.
He has Cancel in his sideboard.
Wow.
And Condemn. And Oust.
Wow, those are some cards we have not seen for a while.
Interesting. Very interesting. So
wanted to play with all of his favorite cards before they rotated out.
So this is game 3. Looks like Edgar was on the play.
Yep.
And he has Fortress into Fortress, so he's a bit delayed in his mana development.
All right, turn 2 Ponder for Chris. And looks at the 3 cards. See if he wants them or not. There's just so many decisions to make with this deck. I mean, every time you ponder, how do you put them back? Preordain, how do you do them? Do you shuffle? Do you not? When do you shuffle? When do you crack your fetch lands? When do you shrine? When do you crack it early? Do you crack it late? All these small little margin things you can do.
I mean,
it's crazy.
Splinter Twin is not the sort of deck that I typically like to play. Though it is certainly... Oh, Spell Pierce stops the second Ponder. So... Edgar is on mono fortress control.
He's building a fortress. So, 3rd fortress for Edgar Flores, just passes back to Chris. Chris lays a mountain. Looks like he's on a mix of arts. See some invasion, some... Is that 2 invasion and something else?
Is that a Dragon Master Outcast?
Dragon Master Outcast.
I like the cut of this guy's jib. Dragon Master Outcast. It's like I won the Invitational and I didn't even know it.
It's like the perfect card for you. It's so true.
I've actually tried to play that so many times. Ooh.
Image your Outcast.
I want one too.
Alright, Mana Leak. That was going to be really cool, but unfortunately, there is a Mana Leak involved.
Gets ousted.
Interesting. Rotten oust in this matchup.
Well, I mean, this is game 3, so we don't know how the first 2 games looked. I'm guessing that Chris showed something like Dragon Master Outcast in game 2, which led to Edgar bringing in Oust for game 3.
Yeah, Outcast is a really interesting card. It can be good in control matchups. It can be good against,
you can really stop there at control matchups.
Well, it's good, really good in the mirror match too.
Sure, I mean the mirror match is basically is essentially a control matchup. One of the great things about Dragon Master Outcast is that it's a card that represents an enormous threat that costs very little mana. Games that, as we've seen in a lot of our previous games between Cobblade and whatever else color that we're playing against, a lot of these games can go very long, and Dragon Master Outcast is a card that in those long games can dominate without the need to tap down low. So looks like Edgar is stuck on mana here. He has actual cancel in his hand.
Don't see that one too often. So it looks like Edgar kept only 3 Glacial Fortress. Not where he wanted to be. How many lands?
Well, Edgar has no Jaces.
Interesting. He's really championed Jace for a long time, and he finally chose not to play it. Wonder what was behind that decision.
I mean, it looks like he wanted to play a substantially more aggressive version, as we've seen the Mirror Crusader Blade Splicer, and a pair of images in his deck.
Yeah. Maybe got a couple.
He also has 3 Sword of Feast and Famine, where many other Cobblade players have cut them down to 1, 2, or just cut them entirely.
Yeah, seeing the sword numbers go up and down, I think, is really interesting, because some decks have a lot, some decks have few. If you're playing with Mirror Crusaders, playing a couple swords makes sense. So Edgar finds his 4th land, a Tectonic Edge, deploys it.
So I've gotten some questions about how people can watch the stream from their phones. Is there some sort of app?
Yes, there is an app they can use. You can find it on the iStore. It's called Skyfire, is that correct?
I know that's an app I used to have that worked for it. I'm not sure.
It's possible we changed providers,
Right.
And so it's possible that the app you need might have changed. We'll ask Jeremy off to the side and have him respond to you guys. And preordained comes down for Edgar Flores. Both players just playing a slow game, and this is an interesting matchup because if Cobblade, taps low, Twin could just win out of nowhere. So you really have to play a long game.
There's the Exarch.
And then there's the Exarch. See if it resolves.
And it looks like it does resolve.
All right, and he's gonna let him untap.
Did he use the trigger?
I think he untapped one of his own lands. Looks like Justin TV has an app you can buy off the iStore. Also, Skyfire browser. It used to work. I think it still works. We're not 100% sure, but that is one place to try. Of course, if you're out and about and trying to find out, and we're telling you right now, this probably isn't helping you. But if you're listening and you're wondering how to do it later, hopefully this will be of assistance. So Chris,
I'll tweet it.
Sounds good. Chris casts another ponder and puts him back. And plays a spell skate, trying to protect his combo before he goes for something. And cancel from Edgar Flores, showing off some older technology. Something we really haven't seen for a while. I can't remember the last time I saw a cancel cast.
It's usually been stoic rebuttal.
Yeah, exactly.
Not gonna mess around. Not gonna pretend I have artifacts. That's actually very weird that he's using cancel because he actually has. He has 4 Nexus, 3 Sword of Feast of Famine, and Blade Splicing. Like it's not at all like impossible for him to get Metal Crown.
Couldn't find foil stoic rebuttals.
Yeah, that might be it.
See if it costs him. I doubt it'll cost him at all, but it is certainly possible. Chris doing the pecking this game, serving in with those Exarchs. Now, we noted earlier that a lot of the time you'll sideboard out your Squadron Hawks if you're the Cobblade deck in this matchup, just because they take up a lot of your time to deploy, and they eat into your mana, which you want to keep open at a lot of different junctures, and you'll just try and control the game and go longer.
Well, how do you plan to win that?
Usually you just plan to sneak in a Mirror Crusader or something like that, and instead of having to tap a lot of mana for something that's relatively small value, you can play one thing and protect it.
Interesting.
When I was playing Splinter Twin, my opponents were sideboarding out their Squadron Hawks. That's what was giving me the most trouble.
Is that a Worm Coil engine?
Whoa. Worm Coil engine.
Big Worm Daddy?
Never expect the engine.
Yeah. And it looks like Chris has at least a Scalding Tarn open. I don't see what else.
I think just Scalding Tarn. All right, gonna royal back
into the royal. And it looks like Gideon may come down next. That's how you win. Gideon Jura.
Yeah, Gideon, kill your Exarch. All right, Exarch down. And now, and Edgar's going to Tech Edge Chris's All of Our Depths too. And now, once Edgar untaps, you can just play the game and protect Gideon. And that's probably why you bring Cancel in this matchup. You just play a slower game, wait for Twin to make the move, and then you just set up your control plan.
Cancel makes total sense to me. A game like this, if Chris hadn't tapped out for that Worm Coil engine, when would Edgar have ever really had an opportunity to play Gideon Jura? Like Worm Coil engine out of Chris's deck is actually what seems sort of strange right here to me.
Oh, I agree. I think he probably left it in as a one-up and then accidentally drew it. It's like, well, I guess I'll cast this.
It looks like Chris is that actually his graveyard on the right? I thought he had access to an extra mana after last turn, but it looks like he's actually down to 5 mana and can't even recast that Worm Coil.
Oh my. Chris certainly bottlenecked on options here. into the Royal on Gideon Jura. So he's going to send back Gideon, pick up a card. Play an Evolving Wilds and crack it. And just pass back to Edgar.
So he only has a single island untapped, which could let him spell Pierce Gideon Jura if Edgar does not have another land. Edgar does not walk into that trap.
Edgar playing safe rather than sorry. Just passes it back to Chris. Yeah, I mean, if he had the Spell Pierce, he could have Spell Pierce Gideon, untapped, and laid Worm Coilage in, and no doubt Edgar was worried about that happening. Here comes Worm Coil.
The Worm Father, once again.
Alright, and Edgar has no responses. So maybe now we'll see Gideon. Chris still holding up that blades.
It's a Mirren Crusader. And Oust.
Alright, Crusader down, and he's going to oust the engine. Interesting. Oust is a really interesting card in this matchup. I don't think I would have thought to bring it in, but
yeah, I guess you really need things that answer Dragon Master Outcast for a low mana cost.
Oust does that nicely. Also makes all those shuffle effects a little less attractive if you want to keep the card on top.
Mm-hmm. It's like preordained, so he can play that Worm Coil again this turn if he wants.
One on bottom, one on top. Wonder if he kept the Worm Coil.
So Edgar actually does not have a Oblivion Ring in his main deck. He does have it in his sideboard, but we don't know if he has it, if he's brought it in.
I don't think he would have brought it in this matchup. All right, there's Worm Coil legit.
Well, if you have Oust in your deck, it seems like Oblivion Ring is relatively similar. He's already cast 2 Ousts, so he's actually in a bit of a rough spot against that Worm Coil engine if he doesn't have another.
There's Oblivion Ring. Weird. This is strange how the Splinter Twin game is degenerated into a Worm Coil engine game. Alright, attacks.
So now Mirren Crusader is definitely a very scary gentleman if it can pick up a sword. So Chris must be a little worried that could come to be the case for the next couple of turns.
Let's see what Edgar can manage. If he's got a sword and he can stick it, that would be brutal for Chris.
We have not seen Grim Lavamancer from Chris here, which would be an excellent answer to that Mirren Crusader, which could also just win the game on its own. It looks like he's trying to figure out how he's going to interact with Into the Royal.
Alright, Deceiver Exarch. And you're up here. Probably tapping that Mirren Crusader. Yep, Crusader taps. And Edgar just passes the turn. Looks like Chris draws a Mana Leaf. And let's see what he does now. Puts it. Alright, he goes for Splinter Twin on Exarch. Dismember from Edgar Flores. And
It looks like Chris is not particularly well set up to fight this right now. He only has 3 mana untapped. Edgar has 7 mana and a fistful of cards that he has not been casting.
probably gonna see Dispel. Oh, Into the Royal on Deceiver Exile. Interesting.
With no kicker?
No kicker.
This does not seem like a good exchange for Chris.
We can't pay for the kicker, I suppose. Or maybe he did kick it. Let's
No,
see.
he didn't kick it.
No, he didn't kick it.
Couldn't
kick it.
Yeah, he's already paid 6 mana this turn.
Spell Pierce.
Or just Dismember again.
2. Edgar will lose 4 more life. Not that it matters too much.
I mean, it looks. I mean, Chris is now in really bad shape. Edgar is going to get a turn with all of his mana.
Yeah, and if there's a sword here...
It looks like Chris does not have many cards in hand. He has... Oh, no, never mind. He just has them all stacked on top of each other.
Yeah. Alright, in comes Mirror Crusader. That'll drop Chris down to 15.
No, he did not have a sword. So,
there's Gideon.
Gideon Jura.
Puts Chris on a 2-turn clock.
Yeah, that represents a lot of damage, a lot of fast.
Yeah, and if Edgar also draws the sword, I mean that's lethal next turn. Let's see what Chris manages to do here.
Slagstorm. Targeting your Mirror Crusader.
Yeah, more or less.
So Slagstorm does not stop Gideon, however. Gideon... Very little stops Gideon. Boom.
All right, Chris to 9. And Edgar can win next turn with Gideon plus Celestial Conduit. Although he knows...
That requires him to tap a lot of mana, and I think he'd much rather just keep attacking with Gideon.
Right. Let's see. All right. Edgar plays lands. And just going to serve with Gideon. Yep. Like you said, playing it safe.
Leaving a whole lot of mana open with a whole lot of cards in hand.
And he's going to pass back to Chris. Chris plays Manic Vandal. Alright, Manic Vandal. With no targets. And he plays a Splinter Twin on the Manic Vandal. Alright. Edgar goes for Into the Royal, and that should be it. Let's see if Chris extends the hand.
Alright, well that goes back. Is he... Okay, yeah, he's responding to the... Chris seems to be asking whether he's casting the Into the Royal or whether he's responding to the Splinter Twin.
I mean, it seems to be a pretty irrelevant question, but...
Spell Pierce.
Spell
I
Pierce.
will pay.
Edgar pays. Everything goes away.
I'll attack you.
Alright,
there you go. Okay, so Edgar Flores wins the match 2-1 against Chris Aprim's Splinter Twin deck.
I'd imagine that probably puts Edgar to 5-0.